Hello, I'm John Janarone, Editor-in-Chief of IPO Edge. Very happy to be back here at the New York Stock Exchange for another fireside chat. We've got a lot of action here at the IPO Summit. We just had a Amerisport first print come out, which looked a little bit higher, so upbeat start to the day. We've got today with us here John Ackerly, who is the co-founder and CEO of Virtru. Thank you, John, for joining us.
So then it is my pleasure to...
All right, so John, I want to talk about this business, but I learned a little bit about your background. You were in the White House at 9/11. Tell us why you were there, what you were doing, and a little bit about the rest of your career before you came to co-found this business.
Great, yeah. So then I joined on the very first day, of the administration as the lead technology policy advisor. So I was on the second floor of the West Wing when that terrible sudden day happened, and it definitely shaped my life. Very proud of the work that we did there, and one of the issues though that was front and center was the lack of the ability to have the trust to be able to share information, share data in order to connect dots to find bad guys has had a profound impact on our country that continues to this day.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, that was still early days of the internet in a way, right? I mean, technology was a lot younger than it is now.
It was before the cloud.
Yeah,
it was before Gmail. It was before a lot of different technologies. And in part, the response to what happened was a bit problematic as well when you had the Patriot Act come through. And so the legal regime didn't actually solve the technology problem, but it did open up a lot of trust issues around who gets to control data. Does the individual get to control data? Does a third party get to control that data? And so I was really on the front lines as that whole kind of baseline set of both laws, but also technology decisions were made.
Gotcha. So one other part of your career I want to touch on before we jump into Virtru is you worked at a private equity fund where I imagine you learned a lot about how to value these businesses, how to see them grow. Can you tell us a bit about that, and then how you decided to co-found this business?
Yes. So then I left the White House in 2004, and then I went to it right here, actually, and I spent about 10 years working in private equity, really focusing on the government space as well as technology businesses that had some kind of intersection with government. And it was just truly serendipitous that my youngest brother, so the one who used to blow up all of my G.I. Joes with fireworks, was an incredible technologist and real architect at the National Security Agency, trying to solve the problem that I saw when I was at the White House, which is how do you actually facilitate the sharing of data in a secure way where everyone can have confidence that they can control that data. So he developed something called the trusted data format. It's now called the zero trust data format, which is an open standard to make it really easy to then take the offense and both protect data, but importantly share it.
Gotcha. So tell us about some of the businesses you serve. Is it a wide variety? Are you focused in a specific sector?
We have about 7,000 customers.
Wow.
We serve tens of millions of then end users, from the largest global banks to the Department of Defense, to the UK government. Really, it's a wide variety of businesses that have really been at the forefront of thinking about not, only spending money about how to protect data from the 1%, or even far less than 1% of the identities of the sophisticated bad actors, but how do we actually facilitate collaboration and data sharing with the 99% of those hundreds of millions of people and systems, non-person entities that have a legitimate reason to access data. And so, really it was that confluence of the technology that my brother invented and that real societal need about how you facilitate more sharing that is at the core, at the heart of Virtru today, and why these customers have really embraced what we call zero trust data sharing. Not just being in a stance where you're trying to protect data, that's fine, but actually that $180 billion of kind of cyber spend, if you look at the headlines every day, doesn't actually do a very good job of actually protecting against those bad guys. But importantly, having a balanced, zero trust, so the posture where you can certainly invest in like all those firewalls, but actually protect the data itself.
I got you. Now, is this all part of having a data-centric approach? I mean, what I'm thinking to myself as we're talking is that in this day and age, companies have so much data. I mean, it's unbelievable how much there must be, especially these bigger organizations. So is that something that you're seeing? They're recognizing we've got to, start with the data, make it data centric.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because it's been such a hard challenge over the past 20 years, people have kind of defaulted to, I can't actually protect at scale the data itself, so then I'm going to protect data by proxy. Yeah. But you're exactly right. Ultimately, it's about bringing those controls down to the data object layer and matching data with identity. So, it's important to protect firewalls. It's important to have application security. All those investments are fine for defense in depth. At the end of the day, it's about being smart about connecting data and that tsunami of data with the tsunami of identities that need access to that data, the vast, vast majority who have legitimate needs for it, ...
Yeah.
And a few of those identities are sometimes not very sophisticated, and sometimes they get disgruntled. So how do you prevent that kind of data leakage, where it is not about the sophisticated bad guy in China, it's about maybe Airman Texiera and the Discord leaks, where he had legitimate access, data was shared with that person, but got disgruntled, wanted to be cool with his friends, and talk about a massive breach for our national security. So to boil it all down, it's data, identity. Virtru sits in the middle to be the brains to connect data and identity in a really easy way for end users.
That's a great way to explain it, John. I've got to ask you, virtually every tech company that I talk to has got something to say about AI. Now, what I also hear is that AI and things that are similar to that have been around for years. Yes. It's just in the last year because of ChatGPT and generative AI, it's gotten more in the news. Is machine learning or AI a part of your business, or do you have anything to say about how it impacts cybersecurity?
What I will promise you is that we will never AI wash at Virtru. It's funny because we've always been, very, very thoughtful about leveraging automation to make it easier and easier to match data and the attributes of that data, the right need to know, and so we've always had an AI strategy, but you will never see us be like Virtru.ai because it's just so easy to kind of paint that picture. And if you often walk the floors at the big security conferences like RSA, for the past 5 years, it's AI this, AI that. It's about how you thoughtfully keep humans in the loop at the right time and leverage the incredible new capabilities of driving automation of decision making. But I think it's a really important trend. I also think what's important too is, not to go too deep here, but the open source market for these models. Yeah. It's getting really, really exciting what you can do with off-the-shelf technology that can be really deployed in very secure ways. Yeah. You don't have to rely on the big public companies that just want access to all of your data. Right. It's where we are very careful about that from a privacy perspective.
That's really interesting stuff. Well, we're almost out of time, John, but I want to ask you, do you have any predictions for the cybersecurity world in general over the next year or two?
It's a very interesting time where it's easy to get depressed. It's easy to say, and there are big time reasons why, why people are feeling challenged. What I would say from a positive perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, is that the U.S. government and our allies are doing an incredible job of real collaboration, not just with Virtru, but with other technologies that are bringing a data-centric approach. So from a technology perspective, and from an innovation perspective, that's still coming from the good guys. Yeah. And if you see what's happened from a cyber perspective in also Ukraine, we're kind of owning the Russians there too. And I think as long as we keep that engine going, and as long as the DoD continues to really drive leadership and thought leadership around moving to a data-centric approach, there is some good stuff happening as well. So I think that's my big message in terms of what we're going to see over the next 2 or 3 years. People are finally really understanding that it's about the data itself.
Well, John, that's really exciting stuff. Perfect way to phrase it. John, this has been terrific. Thank you for joining us. This has been John Ackerly, who is co-founder and CEO of Virtru. I'm John Janarone, signing off the New York Stock Exchange.